Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. This is my dad, Ted.
Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. I'm your host, Ted Knightsky. Today, I'm joined by Matthew Arau, author, educator, leader, musician. His resume is really very impressive. But what I like about him the most is the fact that I never met him before. And we were introduced by a mutual friend of ours who said, "You guys share a lot of things, especially mindset." Well, that's all I needed to hear, because if I can find other buffaloes to join the herd who live their life optimistically, willing to face the storms that are coming and then charge into them, I am all in. This was and is a great conversation. His mindset is pure, it is strong, and it is kid-inspired, which is where I think I learned the most from him. As you listen to Matthew, I want you to think about a few things. Number one, what are you doing each day to look for the ways in which others can propel you? Number two, what does it mean for you to be on the upbeat? And finally, what did he bring to you through this conversation that will help you grow, go, and move into the storms that you face? Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. I'm excited today to have a conversation with Matthew Arau, who is an author, professor, educator, musician, leader, inspirational speaker, all-around fun guy. He's got a hell of a shirt on already today to bring energy to our conversation and discussion. Matthew, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, it's great to be here, Ted. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, friends, you've got to look him up. And by the time we're done with our conversation, you will have a great understanding of not just his energy, but his upbeat mindset, his get-to strategies, and just the ways in which that he has interwoven music and life into a leadership philosophy. So, Matthew, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and kind of like what your formation was as a kid.
I grew up in California, and my upbringing started in Los Angeles. My dad's from Spain, my mom's from LA, and they met in Spain and started raising a family. I'm the third child, and lived in LA till I was 4. And then we moved to Sacramento when I was 4 years old. And so I did all my public schooling in Sacramento. Most of my memories are from there. And I got involved in music almost from birth. I started singing and making up songs. And my first instrument was literally a tennis racket.
Nice.
Just a, right? Anything to make music. Started singing, formed my own band. I was the only member of the band. But when I was 5, we were called the Annual Flames. And then I added my brother when he was old enough. So I was 7, he was 5. He joined the band, and he played the Baskin Robbins ice cream, like those cartons of ice cream. He'd flip those over, and this became the drums with chopsticks as the drumsticks. So we were doing anything to make music. But I actually started studying piano when I was 7, and my sister played piano. My older brother played trumpet. So it's kind of in this musical atmosphere. And I fell in love with jazz early on. That's what really lured me into music was jazz, and I got serious about jazz and had some incredible opportunities as a jazz musician. Got to perform with Dizzy Gillespie at the Monterey Jazz Festival. And
What?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I mean, when I look back on these opportunities, I toured Japan with members of the Duke Ellington Jazz Orchestra when I was in high school. Like, what? Yeah, you look back on those memories, think like, gosh, I was lucky.
First of all, I love how you say it so casually. I look back on those memories like I'm so lucky. That's amazing. You just named 2 of the like literal fathers of the American pop jazz scene from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I mean, those guys lived forever. But wow.
Yeah, I'm getting kind of like chills actually just thinking about it, because I'm so often in the present, living in the present, but like looking back, I'm very grateful.
So what did you play when you were with them? The piano?
No, I play saxophone. So I
saxophone, tenor, alto.
Yeah, I started out on alto when I was 9 years old, and was in just growing up in the band programs. And I was fortunate to attend a junior high in Sacramento and a high school in Sacramento that was one of the top jazz programs in the state of California. So lucky, so incredible role models for me, which I think is so important, right? Having role models, in terms of leadership, that's who I was looking up to, and I wanted to become like them. And so I just practiced like crazy. Had an amazing teacher, private saxophone teacher, who I learned a ton from. And so music was really important. Academics were really important to me too. So I was really interested in history and economics and the whole kind of like social sciences when I was in high school too. So I had this great musical background, but also an academic background. So I decided to go to Lawrence University for my undergraduate work, which is where I now teach at. And I went there because it was a strong double degree program. So I majored in government and music. What a combo,
Wow.
right? Government and music. And I was drawn there because I had one of the top jazz programs in the country, but also one of the top saxophone teachers. So I got really into saxophone and studied classical saxophone. And I competed in Geneva at the World Saxophone Competition when I was 21 years old. And just preparing for that was amazing. 140 saxophonists from around the world, ages 18 to 30. I was one of the younger ones. They only took 10 into the second round. Newsflash, I was not one of the top 10 to make it, but I'm so proud of myself for preparing for such an endeavor.
Okay. So I my head is spinning. I've got a gajillion questions. I want to go back into school.
Okay.
Actually, I want to go further back. Brothers and sisters. So how many? What was the total sibling count in your family, and who are they?
Great. So 4 siblings. Older sister is Maria, 6 years older. And
I once met a girl named Maria. Deep cut for my musical friends. Come on, not too bad. All right.
Maria. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I was a Jet. By the way, I was a Jet in the West Side Story musical.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think I was typecast by my choir teacher because I was mouthpiece. I was the little gang member who just kept talking all the time, trying to get people to fight.
Now you've built a career doing it.
Yeah, right. Okay, so Maria,
and she again was an incredible role model for me. She's now a professor in Portugal, teaching English. Married a Portuguese winemaker, so hard to beat that, right?
Oh my gosh,
Portugal. I have an older brother named Jose who was a great football player and really great at architecture, and that's what he ended up pursuing. He's now an architect in Berkeley. And then I have a younger brother, Javier, who is a heck of a musician. And all those experiences that I shared about playing with Dizzy Gillespie and with members of the Duke Ellington Big Band, he shared those experiences with me. In fact, we grew up playing the saxophone together, had our own jazz combos. But he's phenomenal. He started his own jazz school in New York City called the New York Jazz Academy.
Wow.
And he's won so many awards. He's written music for movies and PBS specials. But his jazz school, the New York Jazz Academy, is really incredible. I think there's been like over 70 countries represented in terms of people coming to study there. And he actually just gave his own TED Talk a couple months ago on music and the music industry. So really really exciting siblings, I guess, to grow up with and to encourage one another throughout our adventures.
And were your mom and dad musically inclined? Is that like a family business?
Like the Jackson 5 or something? No.
Yeah.
Right. So my mom definitely has an aptitude towards music for sure. Grew up doing piano lessons. She actually stopped piano lessons in her teens because her piano teacher was so mean. It would like literally take the ruler out and like smack her hand when she'd make a mistake. Like you think of like those old stories. She had that, but she still had lots of gifts and could sight read down at the piano, and her ear was amazing. My dad did not have a musical background, although being from Spain, flamenco guitar recordings we were always listening to that and going to see classical guitar players because of my dad's Spanish heritage. So Yeah, that and music was always playing in the house, records of all different styles of music.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And did you have a teacher that when you reflect back upon your childhood, elementary school, middle school, high school, who really encouraged you and gave you kind of the both the energy and courage to kind of follow your path? Any inspirational educators along the way by name?
Yeah, so Mark Tolga was my private saxophone teacher
Mm.
starting in seventh grade, and he was phenomenal, really dedicated to my brother and I, and really believed in us and encouraged me along the way. And then I'll also add one other teacher, surprisingly wasn't in the music field, but he was my zoology teacher in
Oh,
junior high.
wow.
Isn't that amazing? And that just goes to show you, it doesn't have to necessarily be the subject. It can really be the teacher, and the teacher could be almost teaching anything. But what I loved about this teacher, his name's Rocky Roschler. In fact, if
Oh,
the first question on a quiz was like, spell my name correctly. And but he was also my basketball coach and football coach. But he was also probably the most challenging, hardest teacher I ever had.
mm,
Seventh grade zoology teacher, and he prided himself on teaching it at the college level. So we had to memorize everything, like memorize all the bones of the body and have like a time test, pointing them all, calling them out, and we did dissections and I think I just really enjoyed like the high standard and the challenge to do well in his class. And it was the same way as a coach too. He really pushed us.
yeah. We're so fortunate when we run into people who have high expectations for us and high levels of support, because that amplifies everything about each of us every single day. So we get into, I've been to Japan, Switzerland. I've competed and played. Take us to, I'm a professor at Lawrence. How does that, I mean, it's a premier musical institution in the United States, and you land in Appleton, Wisconsin from California. What was that formative experience like?
Well, first of all, I have to credit my uncle George, who told me about Lawrence. Growing up in California, I was aware of like West Coast schools and East Coast schools, and I wasn't really familiar with a lot of the schools in the Midwest. But my uncle George had actually gone to Lawrence, and he said, "Are you applying to Lawrence?" And I was like, I wasn't planning on it." He's like, "You really should. They have an incredible music school." I said, "Okay, cool." So I applied, and I'm so grateful that I did, right? Because if I hadn't, my life would have turned out very differently. But I was this California boy coming out to Wisconsin and never experienced a cold winter like we had out here. I got my
Yeah.
first down coat, and that was a big weather change, but it was an amazing school. It's a small liberal arts college. It's only undergraduate students. I started off day one. I was the research assistant for the government department.
Mm.
That was one of the things they attracted me to come to the school. Was like, we're going to ask you to be the research assistant for the government department. I was like, whoa, okay, that's pretty cool. So got to work really closely with the professors in political science, and then on the music side, I ended up doing three majors in music, believe it or not.
Wow. What are they?
So I did saxophone performance with an emphasis in jazz studies is what I started off with. But then I fell in love with classical music. So I added classical saxophone performance. And then along the way, I well, for once, I was actually really struggling with what I wanted to do with my life. And I didn't know, like, do I want to be an attorney, a political science professor, be a politician? Do I want to be a jazz musician? All these ideas and options. And I had a lesson with my saxophone professor, who's the third teacher who had a huge influence on me. His name's Steve Jordheim. And I came into a lesson my third or fourth year at Lawrence, and I said, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And he said, well, Matthew, what do you really love to do? And I said, you know what I love to do? I love to teach people, and I love to play the saxophone. And he said, Matthew, you'd be a great music teacher. And I responded, really?
Mm.
He said, yeah, I think you'd be a great teacher. So here's a leader, here's a teacher who saw something in me that I didn't necessarily see in myself yet. And I think that's such an important part of leadership, is believing in those that you lead and seeing potential or seeing greatness in somebody, sometimes even before they do. and then bringing it out of them and helping them believe in themselves. And that's what my teacher, Steve Jordheim, did. So I ended up pursuing music education. I also student taught U.S. history and civics and got certified in political science at the same time. So
that's smart, because that's what I majored in, but I could never play the sax. So tell me about your definition of a leader, because you just shared in a story my definition of a leader. So to me, a leader is anyone who has influence over another person. And the belief is that makes everyone a leader. And when we do smart thinking and we reflect upon our impact upon others every single day, that's the constant journey to be a better version of ourselves. So where do you fall with leadership in your definition?
Well, first of all, that warms my heart to hear what you just shared, because I've been sharing this for about 20 years now. And is it okay if I share the backstory of how I even got into?
Yeah, no, please.
Leadership? Okay, yeah. So I'll share. After I graduated undergraduate, I went to Colorado and became a music teacher. And I taught middle school band in Loveland, Colorado for 8 years, and then moved to the other side of town and became the Loveland High School band director. This was all I taught at public school from 97 to 2012. But in 2005, I became the head band director at Loveland High School. And the program had been successful in terms of winning trophies, winning championships. But what I soon realized when I took over the program is it had a very toxic culture within the program, which is interesting. You can have all the accolades and trophies sometimes on the exterior, the external things look great to the public, but sometimes within an organization, which I discovered, there can be a toxic culture. And what I mean by that is trumpets versus flutes, section leaders thinking they're better than everybody else and talking down to people, seniors against the new director, me, right? So a lot of division and conflict in the group. Fortunately, beginning of second semester, 2 students knocked on my office door. Their names are Brad and Greg, 2 trombone players, junior and sophomore. And they knocked on my door and they said, "Mr. Arau, can we talk to you?" And I said, "Sure, come on in." They said, "Well, we're sick and tired of how the seniors are acting." Okay, because that was kind of like the pushback from the seniors. And they said, "We believe in you." They knew that their prior director, whom everybody adored, had recommended me for the position. So that, added credibility. And they said, "We believe in this program, but we know we got a lot of room to grow." And they asked me the most important question: how can I help? My students asked me, how can we help? And I still share that. I think that's one of the most important questions we can ever ask as a leader. How can I help? Or as a member of the organization, how can I help? Every day, think about how can I help? How can I contribute? And because of that question, I shared with my students, hey, you know what? If there's other students in the band that feel the same way as you, and they said, "Oh yeah, there's a lot of us that feel the same way." I said, "Why don't we have a meeting after school in a couple of days, and let's just talk about what kind of band we want to create." And so 2 days later, we got together, sat in a big circle, and we started talking about what kind of band we wanted to create. What do we want to be known for? What do we want our reputation to be? What is leadership? And I introduced the concept of servant leadership. And this is the first time they'd come across this idea that their image of a leader in band was that if you're the best player, you get to tell everybody else what to do. Right? And so there was a lot of shouting and kind of talking down to students. But they did that not because they were bad people, but that's what was modeled beforehand. And all of a sudden I was proposing a new way of looking at leadership to my students. And what's really neat is they bought into it because they started applying it in their own lives. We started training on concepts like the 7 habits of highly effective people, John Wooden's 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. I'm sorry, John Wooden's pyramid of success.
Yeah.
And John Maxwell's 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. Those became like the 3 pillars that we really focused on. And we were talking about what leadership means, and there was a student, her name's Mindy, played tuba, and she said, "Well, Mr. Rao, what would it look like if every single person in the band was a leader? What would that look like?" And I thought about it. I was thinking, well, right now we have section leaders, so a student, one trumpet player leads the trumpets, one student leads the clarinets, and they're the leaders, and then there's a drum major who conducts the band at the side of the football field, and they're the leader of all the students. But what would it look like if every student was a leader on the field? We had to think about that. And I said, well, you know what? I guess it depends on how you define leadership. Mm-hmm. And that led to collectively my students and I coming up with a definition of leadership, which is leadership is inspiring and encouraging others to achieve their full potential.
Love it.
And we started riffing on that and said, okay, do you need a title to encourage somebody? No. You don't even need to be the best player. You just need to show up and do your best. But if somebody needs encouragement, be there to share encouragement. What about inspiring? Oh, that sounds almost unattainable. Like we don't usually show up in the day and be like, I'm going to inspire somebody, right? But you know what happens? We just show up and do the right thing, and we keep growing and getting better. And guess what? Before you know it, you've inspired somebody because they're looking at you. And that's inspiration. And again, what's our goal? Well, to help people achieve their full potential. Well, in order to help people achieve their full potential, you have to believe in their potential.
And I think, I love the part of this story where the students came to you. And the reason for that is, our listeners are Buffalo leaders, right? We charge in the storms that we are facing. Yeah. And too often, too many people are waiting for someone else to come in and claim or cure the culture. When the culture has to fix the culture. And the strongest teams, everybody understands their lanes, and then they hold each other accountable. And they step into the spaces provided by other people's negativity or positivity. And I think, you had like a prolific moment there with those kids, and what a blessing for them, those young people, to come to you, because in the end, it's really cool. I heard an NFL coach say one time, when my best players are my best leaders, I've really got something going on. But when I have a team of best leaders, I have a team of champions. And I love how you framed that. I love what you did with it, and just the inspiration to just go to that opportunity those kids presented to you. Because you're right. I mean, you're new. They saw you. They must have trusted you. But then to snatch it and go and break the culture, because there are a lot of people who would want to have a strong lane of kind of command and control as the conductor or leader of the band. There are a lot of young people in that culture who would want to see the seniors and the first chairs dominate. And yet you flipped it over, and look where it's taken you.
Yeah, it was really, really neat. And I didn't know what it was going to turn into. We started meeting every week. We named it, we called it the Leadership Symposium. And so, every week we'd hold this leadership symposium, and there was always a note taker, and we'd share the notes with the students who couldn't be there, and they created an online forum to continue the discussion. So imagine, this is back in 2005, 2006. Students are literally early forums. I mean, I think it's pre-Facebook, but they're literally writing about, like, what do you think leadership is, and debating the 7 habits and all this kind of stuff. Like, they took the conversation way beyond. And we did it for 7 years. And what I think is really, really neat is I left the school in 2012, but when we hired my replacement, leadership was really important in the interview process. And the person who followed me, his name's Kyle Friesen, he's still directing the band, and he still hosts the Leadership Symposium. So it lasted well beyond me. And it was important to me, because my final year at the school, we actually trained on the law of legacy from John Maxwell over and over and over again. I said, it's not about me, it's about the program, and what's important about the program. What do you want to continue? Because you're going to also graduate, but how do we keep this going? And to realize that it's 2025, and it's still going strong 13 years after I left. That's incredible.
I think one of the things I just love about what you just said is SYM, S-Y-M, a Greek root, which means together, right? So symposium, symphony, symbol, symbiotic. It just breathes from you. And what a great transformative opportunity for you as a leader to then parlay that as you continue on in your growth. But I can't imagine how powerful it was for those young people to be taught leadership, because that, I believe, is a huge gap in what we do when we expect kids to be leaders, but then we don't train them up. For instance, I run a student leadership training program or certification program. And my spark for that was when my son was offered to be the captain of his varsity soccer team in high school. And he came home, right? And I was a varsity coach and I played soccer at high levels, right? And I'm like, hey, what does it mean that you're the captain? Like, what's your job? And he was like, I don't know. I said, oh, tomorrow I want you to go back and ask, what's your job? And he said, okay. Came back the next night. Hey, Charlie, what's your job as captain? Dad, I didn't ask. I don't want to ask. I don't want anybody upset with me. I'm like, buddy, I need to know if your mom and I have to like do spaghetti dinners or if you're going to run out training or if you're to pick up, like you need to know. And he just wouldn't do it. And then I started asking other kids, young men and women, because like you, when I saw a space like that, I stepped into it. So when I was a coach, everybody had job assignments. Literally, we had job descriptions for what's the captain's job, what's the player's job, etc. And for you to take that, right, and to close that gap for those young people, and then use music instruction and band as the opportunity to symbolically bring them together as leaders, it's flipping awesome. It's just awesome, man. And I'm so proud of you because I hope people listening take the opportunity to recognize that it's all about the investment in people and their futures and what they can do. And I loved the mission that you guys had put together. That's fantastic.
Well, what happened in terms of the leadership journey was and I know it's no surprise to you and your listeners, but as we trained on leadership, as we grew the culture, and we grew it collaboratively, right, by design, we grew it collaboratively. I think that's so important. It wasn't a top-down creation. It was literally in collaboration with the students. We created the culture we wanted, but it lifted every aspect of the music program. And that's the key, right? So performance level through the roof. But beyond that, like our connection to the community, right? Our fundraising efforts with connecting to the community because they saw what we were doing in terms of, building character and citizenship and leadership skills with the students. So people were so excited about it. And we just built this quality reputation, not only performance, but also in character. And that's something I'm really, really proud of, is that, we can grow citizenship within music. I did it within music. I know that you can do it within sports and all other fields because now I teach leadership, to students of all backgrounds and teachers of all backgrounds. But it started with that core of music.
Okay, so I'm going to be very vulnerable here. Now I was in the symphony. I played the violin, and I was in choir, but that doesn't mean I remember any of it. And what I love about you is yours is the upbeat, but if I'm not mistaken, the downbeat is the first, is that like the first loud part at the beginning of a measure that we then move into?
Yep.
So the loud part for you was those kids showing up, and then you flip it to upbeat, and I just think that's so cool. I can't stop thinking of musical metaphors. So I'm going to pivot here, and I'm going to ask you a question, and you may or may not, but have you read the book Say Yes to the Mess?
No. I haven't.
So it's a book about jazz and leadership.
Oh, wow.
And it talks about that there's two ways to approach leadership through a musical metaphor. You can do it symphonically, right? Everybody's got their parts. You have to play in complete harmony, and there is one leader, and we will follow the conductor, right? Anybody who goes off script, you're out. But in jazz, when someone makes a mistake, we just play a little louder into that space. It allows, and that's the metaphor of say yes to the mess. Yeah. So like for you to be dual certified in a jazz saxophonist and a classical saxophonist, I think it's a cool confluence for kind of who you are as I read your book and all of your materials. So I want you to talk to me a little bit or talk to us about what is Upbeat? What's Upbeat mindset that you developed after all this cool formation?
Yeah. So here's a little visual for your viewers. But so the first book is titled Upbeat. But where did Upbeat come from? Well, check this out. And it's great that you have the musical background. All right. So Upbeat has a double entendre, a double meaning, right? And so I like to talk about what is Upbeat, just like when somebody sees the word upbeat, what do they think of? Like who has an upbeat person? All right, think about who's an upbeat person in your life, somebody who maybe encourages you, somebody you go to talk to when you're having a tough time or a tough day, and they're a good listener, maybe that shoulder to cry on. They're your upbeat person, right? And I think it's important to have an upbeat person in our life. And for many of us that are maybe our upbeat is, we also need upbeat people in our life, for the tough times that we're having. We just all need to encourage each other. So that's what upbeat also means. But the second meaning where it comes from music is the upbeat is when the conductor is standing in front of the ensemble and they give the prep beat to get it started. So imagine you're in an orchestra concert and you're in the audience and there's that silence. The conductor's walked out. They're standing in front of the group. Their backs to the audience, but they're facing the orchestra. The orchestra members are all looking at the conductor, getting ready to play. And the conductor makes one motion. It looks like this. They breathe in, lift their hands up. That's the upbeat. And then the hands come down. On the downbeat, and the music starts. Now, there's a magical space that happens within the upbeat. It happens on the inhale, on the the inspiration, right? The inhale, we breathe in. And as we're breathing in, the conductor is already hearing what they want to create. They've already heard that first note, even though it's in silence. They anticipate it. They visualize it in their mind, in their mind's eye and in their mind's ear. They hear the dynamics, the volume. They hear the color of the front of the note. Is it struck hard? Is it struck lightly? Is it a short note? Is it a long note? They hear the balance and blend of the different instrument colors. They feel the energy and mood that they want to create. All of that is happening in the upbeat. See, music's always created twice, first in the mind and then with the voices or the instrument. It happens here first, boom, and then it's created. And so everything's created twice. So we create the music in our head on the upbeat, and then the downbeat, the music happens. I took this metaphor of the upbeat into life. So we can think about it in music. The upbeat affects the downbeat. It anticipates the downbeat. Just like in football, the throw is the upbeat, the catch is the downbeat. In basketball, the shot is the upbeat, the swish is the downbeat. In track and field relays, the handoff of the baton is the upbeat, the catch is the downbeat. The way the band, choir, or orchestra take the stage is the upbeat to the performance, right? The way the marching band lines up in the back of the field and takes the field is the upbeat to the show. The attitude that we bring into a meeting before the meeting starts is the upbeat to the meeting. The thoughts that we have, the attitude we bring into a conversation is the upbeat to that conversation. The first thoughts we have in the morning upon waking are literally the upbeats to the day. As we greet the day in the morning, right? We can greet the day with gratitude or focusing on what we're looking forward to. And that's going to set up the trajectory for the rest of our day. And I want to reduce it down to this. Our thoughts are the upbeats to our actions. Our attitude is our upbeat to any situation. We choose our thoughts and our attitude. We choose our upbeat. And that's the beginning of upbeat.
My mindset, my actions.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And as you've explored this further, one of the things that, I find in my space, like when I go present and I'll talk to people, is there's usually one person who comes up to me kind of sheepishly and is like, well, you can't always be. And I'm like, no, you actually can. Like, you can wake up like this if you go to bed like this, if you believe those different pieces. And Matthew, what I love is you framed that so beautifully, how a conductor is seeing and hearing that. And I think a lot of people know this, is that there's like that just the small breath you take right before you say something, how you react and respond into a situation, while it might not even be a full heartbeat, it's based upon your habits, what your experiences are, and kind of what works for you. And how are you helping people move to that upbeat so that the following action is, to use the metaphor, a swoosh, a touchdown, a home run, right? A piece that is never forgotten, that moves you, a musical piece that moves you in ways that you didn't think was possible.
Well, there's a lot to that. I mean, as a conductor, I'm going to bring my full self to the place, right? I'm going to approach this with just everything I have and put my full body into this, my full energy into this. And I find the energy I give is the energy that comes back to me. I introduce to people what I call an upbeat mindset. And to introduce what it means to have an upbeat mindset, I'll share an interesting research study. Every second, the human brain takes in 11 million bits of information, but we are only conscious of 40 bits. Okay, that's pretty mind-blowing. Every second, we take in 11 million bits of information, but we're only conscious of 40 bits. So once you kind of like are able to soak that in, the next question I like to ask is, well, what if we could choose those 40 bits? What if we could choose what we focus on? Would that make a difference? And the miracle is that we can, with intention, choose where we place our focus. And we know that what we focus on grows, what we focus on expands. And you can test this with your own life. Try waking up in the morning or right now, pause and breathe in what you're grateful for. And think of something that you're filled with, that fills you with gratitude for someone or something that fills you with gratitude. Just take that in and really let that gratitude kind of like take over your whole body. Notice how by focusing on that, you feel different already. Mm-hmm. And what's amazing is that when we focus on something we're grateful for, our mind starts to scan our environment for another thing that we're grateful for. And so gratitude compounds. This is about being intentional about what we focus on. I would also share that Upbeat isn't about ignoring the negative in life. Upbeat isn't about ignoring the problems. Because when we do that, we get into what we call toxic positivity, which is just like, let's put a smile on our face. And, there are challenges. There are hard things in life.
Sorry your dog died, but you can always get another one. That's toxic positivity. Those people drive me wild.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild.
So I like to come with Upbeat from an authentic place and actually just acknowledge like life is hard. Mm-hmm. Life is hard. But what are we going to do about it? Are we going to wallow in there? Are we just going to go down the negative rabbit hole? Or are we going to find positive ways to create what we want? Another Upbeatism that really helps is rather than focus on what is wrong, focus on what you want to create. Mm. And again, I'll preface this by saying there's nothing wrong with focusing on what is wrong. That's how we make the world a better place. Identifying injustices, problems that need to be solved. Right? That's important. And there's nothing wrong with focusing on what is right. That's kind of a nice mental switch. They can focus on what's wrong. But what else is right? Cool. Awesome. These are kind of levels down here. But when you focus on what you want to create, you actually ascend to a much higher level now. When your mind is thinking about what do I want to create, now you're in the solution finding level. You're in the creation mode, which is the highest level to function in, is creation. And when you're in creation mode, you start to visualize what you want to create. And not only do you visualize it, it's important to believe it too, because what we believe affects what we can achieve. And so I encourage people to take a moment to think about if there were no limitations, what would you want to create with your life? What would you do? Who would you be? Who would you become if there were no limits? And the reason I share this is because oftentimes people, if they have the courage to dream of what they want to create, they will become their own limiter. And they will share, but we don't have money, we don't have support, people will work against me, what will this do to my friend circle if I kind of start to rise above? The crabs in a bucket syndrome, right? The people that, like the crab who tries to escape from the bucket, the crabs pull them back, right? In Australia, they call it the tall poppy syndrome. If you start to rise above, what do? They cut the poppy down because they don't want to have no tall poppies, right? So it discourages people to really grow to achieve their full potential. But I want you to get in a mode like, what if there were no limits? So unlimited money, unlimited support, you could do anything. What would you do with your life? That feeling that you had when you were 4 or 5 years old, when your teacher said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And you thought, "I could be whatever I want to be." I want to go back to that place, because when you go to that place, your mind starts to come up with a plan already of how we can get there, and it starts with the first step.
So powerful, so powerful, and I love the yeah buts. I used to work with a gentleman who used to say, the first 5 minutes of this meeting will be yeah buts, and after that it will be and. So we can have the dialogue of dissension,
Okay.
but then we have to frame ourselves to believe that we can do this. And that's my working definition of an optimist, is someone who bets that they can win, right? And there are no yeah buts in victory. There's only and. Now, there are things that we need to prepare for and things that we need to think about and take into consideration. But at the end of the day, if we're truly focusing on leadership and our own ability to pursue what we want to pursue in an effort to impact other people, that road cannot be littered with the landmines of the negative. It's not helpful. And you lay that out so well. And one of my favorite things that you have in your toolbox and your book and your trainings is get. And there's lots of people who talk about, what do you get to do? But you've framed it into a process. Can you share with us what that get process is and how to apply it?
Absolutely. So I call it the power of get, and living in the spirit of get, which has completely changed my life. And just to give a backstory, a quick backstory, on September 12, 2020, just so over 5 years ago now, I woke up that morning excited to go for a swim in our swimming pool. But it was dark, dreary, it was raining, and it was super cold outside. It was about 40 degrees. And so instead of going for a swim, I got out a notebook and started journaling. Because it was September 12, I thought about the day before, which is September 11. But I didn't journal about the day before. I actually went back in time to 9/11, so September 11, 2001. And on that day, I was a middle school band director in my 5th year of teaching. I know.
I was a first year assistant principal in a middle school.
Wow, we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a day.
Whew. But after watching in my first 2 classes with 11-year-old students, 6th graders, we had the TV on. We didn't play. We watched the first tower fall in the first class and the second tower fall in the second class. But when we got to the 7th and 8th graders after lunch, one of the 7th graders asked, "Could we turn the TV off? Can we play today?" And I said, "It's a great idea." So in the 7th grade, we got our instruments out and we played, out of our band method book, we played a piece titled America.
Oh.
Da, 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 da. Just 6 measures. We played that over and over and over again. And that's all we played the entire class. And then the 8th graders came in, and we had an arrangement of a piece of music in their folders that was so appropriate for that day. It was Amazing Grace.
Oh.
You could just imagine. And I have to say that on that day, my students and I came to understand the superpower, the true superpower of music. Because on that day, there were no words to really express how we felt, but we had music to express how we felt from our heart. And it really affirms what it means when it said, "When words fail, music speaks." Mm-hmm. And so as I was reflecting about 9/11, the power of music and all the feelings of that day, and being in the midst of the global pandemic, something overcame me, like a switch went off. Because as I started making my to-do list for the day, after I finished journaling, I simply added one word to my to-do list, and that word was get. It wasn't like my day was a different type of list. It was the same kind of thing. But now it read, I get to, email Sarah. I get to call Mark. I get to prepare to teach my classes. But then I wrote something that surprised me. I get to dance in the rain. And I get to go for a swim. And I did. I put on my swim shorts and I went outside. And even though it was freezing cold and raining buckets, I dove into the pool. And after I did a little jig on that, as I said I would dance, I'm swimming in the pool, And I'm thinking about all that I get to do in my life, right? I get to have this breath. I get to go for a swim. I get to have a life in music. I get to inspire others. I get to teach leadership. And I'm thinking about all that I get to do. And as I'm thinking about all that I get to do, it made me think about another powerful word, and that word is yet. And I thought about Carol Dweck's incredible research and work in the area of growth mindset and her TED talk called The Power of Yet. And I thought, well, why is yet so powerful? Yet is powerful because it's about hope. When somebody says to us like, I don't think I can do this, right? We can respond and say, no, you just can't do it yet. See, yet is about promise. Yet is about hope. It's just like, I'm going to be alongside you. I'm going to help you get there. We're going to work. We're going to come with strategies. I'm going to support you along the way. We're just not there yet. So yet is about hope. Yet is about the future. Mm-hmm. As I was thinking about yet, I was thinking about why am I so jazzed about get? And I realized it's because get is about the present moment. Get is about right now, which is the only moment that's ever guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you and I get to have this conversation together, and we get to cherish this moment, this time together as we're both growing through this collaborative discussion. And I thought, wow, this get is incredible. What if I could live in what I call the spirit of get forever? What if I could always live in the present moment? What would that be like? So I got out of the pool and dried myself off and went inside, and I thought, what if I could add meaning to each of the letters, G-E-T? And this is what I want to share with you. G stands for gratitude. Mm-hmm. To live life from a spirit of gratitude. Like that is the intention, to appreciate others. I thought to myself, how many times have I felt appreciation for somebody else and kept it to myself?
Right.
I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to share appreciation openly. And then E is for enthusiasm, which is a choice to live life with enthusiasm, with energy, to be all in, to live full out. And something that was really exciting as I was researching for my book, I like to learn the origins of words, just like you mentioned sim meaning together. I went to the origins of the word enthusiasm, was kind of overwhelmed to discover the real meaning of the word enthusiasm. It comes from the Greeks. Thus means God. Iasm is essence. And N is within. Enthusiasm translates to the essence of God within us. I thought, if you knew that, how would you live your life? You wouldn't let those moments go, right? You would cherish those moments. And then that leads us to T. T is treasure. To treasure the people in our lives. To not take folks for granted, and not take anything for granted, really, ever again. But as I thought about the word treasure, I realized that there is a lost or hidden treasure. And it's not like the treasure chest of gold at the bottom of the sea, although that would be fun to discover one of those.
Right.
It's really the lost or the hidden treasure is the treasure within each one of us. But sometimes we forget, and we're givers. We're givers, right? And we give. And sometimes we don't take the time to refill our own cup. Because see, sometimes we are so focused on the treasure being out there somewhere else, and we forget that the treasure lies within. The true treasure lies within each one of us. Each one of us has a light within that's meant to shine brightly. And I think that's actually the whole point of it all, is to shine our light brightly. Not because it's about us, but because when we shine our light brightly, we encourage other people to shine their light brightly. And in fact, leadership is shining a spotlight on others. But in order to do that, you have to shine your own light brightly to begin with. And so I think that so much of society and culture dims our light. Like there's so many forces out there, peer pressure. Sometimes even school can dim our light, and families can dim our light. But we have to break free from that and realize that each person on this planet is here for a reason, that each person here matters, that you are special. You have a unique light that's meant to shine, not to be like somebody else, but to be fully you, to rise to your full potential. And in the process of becoming, in the pursuit of becoming, that's where we grow into our magnificence. And so when I talk about living, embracing the power of get, living in the spirit of get, I now think about the most mundane things and replace it with the word get. Like it's not I have to do the dishes, I get to do the dishes because I have dishes, right?
Right.
sometimes we can think like I have to go to work. No, I get to go to work. I get to go to work because I'm going to make a difference with the work that I do, and the income I'm going to bring in is going to help support my family and support others through good deeds. And so when we change our framework to realize that we can literally change our to-do list from a have to-do list to a get to-do list, it transforms how we think about the present moment. When you change the present moment, you change your future.
It's just such a micro and macro reflective exercise every single day. And, and people who utilize this, and that's why I love the tool that you have where you actually have your your organizer for your get to-dos. Yeah. And I have found that is prolific. Mm. I love the fact that you bring that spirit to everything. And I love the metaphor or analogy about the light. Mm. I've kind of lived my life like there's 3 candles that I have to keep lit, and how much wick I give each one is up to me. There's the me candle, the you candle, and the we candle. And sometimes I focus so much on keeping my wick and my light brighter that I'll look past the other things that I get to do for others. And it's just been a powerful piece. And your reminder today on that, I think anyone who's listening is gonna end the podcast, sit down, and just probably write down, which I would encourage you to do because it is a very powerful exercise. What are those things? And again, from the macro to the micro, I get to unload the dishwasher. And I've had some people kind of weaponize this, like, well, just think about it. Just think if you were sick, or if you were this, or if you were, oh, no. It's me, my presence, and sometimes this is where hubris needs to come in, where I have to be humble and really think, what is it that I get to do, instead of being jealous of others or being in that comparative world, which I think should energize a lot of people who have to work with young people to remember to teach them about all of the different gifts that we have in our get-tos. So I love that you brought that up. I love that that's your mission. And I think how you frame it is just, it's poetic and it's spiritual the way you say it. And I love that you broke down enthusiasm for us. That is fantastic. And I just want you to know it took all of my maturity not to start singing This Little Light of Mine when you said that. It was a big moment for me personally. So with that, we're kind of running out of time here, and I've got a bunch of little things that I wanted to ask you. Obviously we can read your book, we can sign up. You do these awesome webinars with people. You speak all over the place, but I have some other things I'm wondering about you. What is your song? So I have this. Whenever I work with groups of people, I collect and I create a 180 playlist. Like if there was one song that came on, no matter what your mood or your attitude, it would, especially if it's you're in a little pit of pessimism and you heard this song, it would change the direction of your moment, leading to a change in the direction of your day. For someone who has dedicated their life to music, and you probably have a mental catalog that's hundreds of thousands deep, what would that song be for you?
It's interesting because the song that I'm going to select is a song that I was exposed to when I was younger and influenced my own first rock band. But it has to do with the power of belief, because I think our belief leads to everything else, and our belief in ourselves, our belief in others. And so it's going to be no surprise that my song is Don't Stop Believin' by Journey.
Yes. Great call. Great call. It's an anthem. Right?
Yeah.
But it strikes different for other people. Mine is Salisbury Hill by Peter Gabriel for a very similar reason. Man takes a walk, goes up a hill, reflects upon the whole world that he's living in, and realizes that he's just a small part of it, and he's got to take his place. So when you move forward through your days, give me one piece of advice for someone who is listening who is in a funk. Mm-hmm. They're in a spot, career, relationship. You've got so many people who are struggling with the narratives in their head. You've got people who are trapped, thinking that they don't belong where they are. They're questioning where they're going. You get a 1-minute interaction with them. You come flying down as a guardian angel. What do you say? Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I empathize, that we can have those dark moments, those challenges where I kind of think like, is it all worth it? And what I would share is that you've overcome hard things in the past. And what you have done in this world is you have contributed. So what I would share with somebody is to do what I call a contribution journal and to literally write down like three things. What did I contribute today? And it doesn't have to be something grandiose. It can be like I fed the dog, right? Or I was kind or friendly to somebody at the grocery store upon checking out. How did I contribute? How did I make a positive difference in somebody else's life or some creature's life? And when we start doing contribution journaling, it's gratitude journaling is really powerful, but contribution journaling is actually about like what do we do and how do we make a difference? And we start focusing on how we actually have contributed and we actually do contribute, it starts to lift us up from that lower state that we're in because we start to realize that I contributed this way. I can take a next step and contribute a little bit more and contribute a little bit more. It reminds us that we are worthy and that what we do here makes a difference. Because I think that's what a lot of it comes down to is, am I worthy? Do I matter? And do I make a difference? And when you
Yes,
focus on what you
yes,
have,
and yes.
yeah, when you focus on what you've done in the past and how you have mattered to people, it reminds you that your spark is here for a reason and to keep
Yeah.
going.
I love this. I have said for years, and I learned this a long time ago, that when you need to rest your mind and you need to frame your mind. And at the end of the day, there's one question that I learned a long time ago that I've asked forever, which is, what did I do well for others today? And I like how you framed that as well, like that contribution journal. Like what did I do well for others today? Which goes back to those two kids coming up to you when you're minding your own business in Loveland, thinking I've arrived and I got my band, and they're like, hey, our culture sucks, man, and we need some help. And then you step into that space and say, let's become servant leaders. Let's take what we know and just be the best. And it's such a cool journey, Matthew. I love it. And I love everything that you do. I mean, I'm so glad that our mutual friend connected us a couple months ago. And I'm really going to encourage our friends to read your book and find out all about you. And if they want to do that, like, how do we get more Matthew?
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm all about connections and building those connections and serving others. So, first thing I'll share is go to powerofget.com. Powerofget.com. And that's going to be the best way for us to get connected. And right away, when you get to powerofget.com, after you just share your name and email, you're going to have the opportunity to take a free Get Leadership quiz. And this quiz is just 4 questions, but the 4 questions and your response to it are going to help you discover what kind of leader you are based on the power of Get. And there's 3 types of leaders: the grower, the energizer, and the trailblazer. And it's not just identifying what kind of leader you are. It's going to, because multi-part questions, will actually share with you your strengths and areas to grow. And it's an amazing coaching tool. But that's going to get us connected. And I share leadership tips once a week with everybody. So your email won't be barraged by me, but it's a way for us to stay connected. So I would start with powerofget.com. If folks are interested in my books, and you mentioned the Get Planner,
Yeah.
which just brings it all together. There's the Upbeat book, Mindset, Mindfulness, and Leadership. There's the Upbeat Daily Journal, and the journal is great. You can do the journaling alongside the book because they're in alignment. And then the Upbeat Leadership Workbook, which is called The Definitive Guide to Developing Leaders from the Inside Out, because that's where I think leadership begins, is how we lead ourselves, and then it extends to leading with others. So this is broken up into 3 parts: mindset, mindfulness, and leadership. So really encourage folks to check those out. You can go to Amazon, or you can go to giamusic.com/upbeat to find all 4 of those resources. My website is upbeatglobal.com. And my email, which I loved connecting over email to, is just Matthew with 2 T's at upbeatglobal.com. And then I'm on all the socials. So I'd love for you to connect on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm the only Matthew Arau in the world. So pretty easy to find. And so, yeah, we do have a Facebook group called Upbeat Leaders, which you're encouraged to join. And I post there every day, messages and uplifting ideas, and just it's a real support team for leaders from around the world.
It's fantastic.
So yeah, I'm all about connection and growing. I'm about collaboration and learning together.
All right, so as we close out here, last question for you. So we appear to be in a very similar season of life, middle school, high school teachers in the 90s, transitioning, growing in our education and shifting our careers, staying in the field of supporting others. The single most important thing I'm wondering is, what did you cover in your band when you were in middle school? What did you guys play and sing?
So you want me to list some of the pieces that we played? Is that what you're hoping for?
Pieces or bands, like if you covered,
Well, I was okay. So when I was in elementary and middle school, I was definitely listening to Arau, Speedwagon, and Styx, and Journey, and even Lionel Richie, and then Michael Jackson. Holy cow, Michael Jackson, big time. Yeah!
Just bought this record in Virginia Beach at a record store, the best of Styx, because that was all elementary school.
Yes.
All elementary school. I had this awesome neighbor, Augusto Garay, who was this very talented musician, and we were little, and I would sing and he would play, and we covered Mr. Roboto. We covered Eye of the Tiger. So that was middle school. Now going into high school, I took a hard right. Where did you go?
Well, I got to say, because I got so deep, I was like all into jazz. So now I'm into John Coltrane and Charlie Parker. That's where I was living in high school. So in terms of like the popular music, I wasn't checking it out a whole lot, to be honest, except for school dances.
Did you get ignited when Harry Met Sally came out and that soundtrack just popped, and then all of a sudden, like, vocal jazz became a thing for people in the late 80s, early 90s? Like, all of a sudden everybody's listening to, they're re-releasing Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong albums. It was such a rich age, because then I want to share an experience with you.
Yeah, so that's awesome when like great music like that gets mainstream. So share your experience. Go for it.
So when I was a junior in college, I realized that some of the greats were not going to be around again. And so Harry Connick played, I want to say, in April. So I bought a ticket and took my girlfriend at the time to go see Harry Connick. And then all of a sudden I was like totally committed. I've got to see the greats. So in one summer, the next artist I saw was Mel Torme with his jazz band. Then I saw Tony Bennett. Then I saw Frank Sinatra.
Wow.
In a period of like 6 weeks. And it was, these guys were old. And Tony Bennett was amazing to the end, and Frank and all those guys. But that love of eclectic music is, I think, what you said when you said you grew up in a household just filled with different music. I think anybody listening needs to recognize one thing. And you had a very powerful statement before about how music fills what the voice cannot. And Matthew, today, your voice, I think, filled our ears with some amazing ideas and strategies and tactics and mindsets. And I'm really proud that we got to meet, and proud of you for what you've done when you were sparked by 2 young people. So thank you for joining the podcast.
You're so welcome, and just so grateful to you for this opportunity. And what a great conversation, Ted. Can't wait for more.
So let's do some smart thinking. List 3 takeaways from this conversation that will help you learn, grow, and go into the storms that you're facing. Describe a mindset that Matthew carries that can propel you forward. And finally, what is one powerful quote that he had shared with us? That's it. That's the Smart Thinking Podcast. Hey, as always, thank you so much for listening. And please make sure to share this episode with others, like this episode, and help me help others by bringing Matthew into the world of those in leadership. Also, thank you to the Well Pennies for their great music and always allowing me to use the music from their amazing studio in Des Moines, Iowa, Golden Bear Studios. Today's music is actually by Andrew Hoyt, who is an elementary school teacher in Iowa and a friend of Brian and Sarah's, and I think he is fantastic. I also thought it was fitting to have another music teacher on the podcast, but this time performing and playing instead of speaking and helping us learn, grow, and go. And last, the Smart Thinking Podcast Winter Retreat is coming up on January 7th. I've invited 4 of the authors who've been on the podcast this fall to come and speak with us in person so that we can learn, grow, and go with them directly. It'll be at Marian University on January 7th. I've dropped the registration in the description of the podcast. And who do I have coming? Well, thanks for asking. I've got Bob Weigert, Rainey Briggs, Aaron Sadoff, and Urs Koning. Urs is coming to us all the way from Seattle. It's going to be a great day of learning and growing together. I will be putting together tools that we can use, that we can directly apply off the learning that we get from them, from their texts, so that we can go back and be better leaders of the teams that we are all on. I've put the link in the description of the podcast, and if you can't find it, just go to cisa6.org and type in Smart Thinking Winter Retreat. Okay, as we close out here on this interview, I just want to pull one great quote from Matthew that I wanted to share with you, and it is this: "You have a unique light, and it should shine into our magnificence." That was such a powerful quote for me that actually when he said it, I remember pausing mentally, cognitively, and just letting those words bounce around in my brain. You have a unique light, and it should shine into our magnificence. That's all I got, friends, because I don't think it gets any better than that. Enjoy your day, move forward, charge into the storms that you're facing, and use some of the ideas to make sure that you're always on the upbeat.
You start my heart when you walk out your car. We talked there for hours. I heard you laugh, gave me a heart attack, yeah, like some superpower. If you're my hero, I need saving. Your smile is what I'm craving. What a beautiful miracle it is. Figure it out. I needed someone to help lift me off the ground. Heroes exist, baby, a gift of light brings me close to the light. Why didn't I see it before? You take me back to when we were singing songs under the stars. Not a worry in our minds, flowing in and out of time. At the speed of light, you ran straight into my life. You can control every thought in my mind. Figuring out, I needed someone to help lift me off the ground, yeah. Heroes exist, baby, a gift of light brings me close to the light. Why didn't I see it before? Wanna get a bit closer to you. Wanna feel your power, yeah. I figured out you were that someone to help lift me off the ground, yeah. Heroes exist, baby, a gift of light brings me close to the light.